All right. Good evening, everybody. We'll call this meeting of the Buckfield Select Board to order for April 16, 2024 at 6:34 p.m. Old business, the reserve fund policy we're going to refer.
So I make a motion to adopt the town of Buckfield reserve fund policy.
I'll second that. Discussion.
So,
My part, there haven't been any changes from the last draft that we read. Is that correct?
I made the changes that you recommended at the last meeting, which was the definitions, changing the sentence about, where it said the town manager had the authority to the select board. If you look at the steps to establish a reserve account, number 2 on the original one I gave you was the one that you had some issues with the language because it sounded like the town manager had to approve all proposed reserve accounts. So I moved it to 3 and I revised it to clarify that any request to open a reserve account by anybody other than the board has to go through me. And then definition.
Which is what the intent was, it just needed.
Right, it was just,
No.
yeah, it was worded really finicky. And then else, I defined the terms that were in question, which were capital expenditures, capital assets. Sorry, I didn't get to it.
That's the first.
Capital improvement. And the one thing that's missing here for some reason. So I'll bring it up so that you can discuss it. I had done, so at the last meeting, I think one of the public that were here had suggested not putting the accounts in there. I had sent an email out to all of you a week or so ago explaining why I thought it was important to include them when you establish the policy and then reviewing it on an annual basis. So as you create or close, you can revise the list. But I did create an appendix A, which outlined the remaining reserve accounts that are currently in existence, which is the rescue matching grant matching reserve, the fire department matching reserve, and the Gibson charitable grant reserve. And basically the appendix, actually I should just pull it up, but the appendix basically outlined that they'll remain in effect and continue to be used for their intended purposes until they're depleted, and then they'll be closed. The grant funding ones, those are for like matching grants. I really feel that the department heads, if they're the amount of money that's in those accounts, if we're not putting a significant amount of money in there for like a big grant, and it's just like a $2,500 grant or something like that, I feel like they should be budgeting for that for their share. I don't think we need to keep it in a reserve account and have it there. If they're buying supplies on a 50% matching grant like the VFA, that should be in their operating budget. So there's currently a minimal amount of money. I think the fire department has somewhere in the ballpark of $2,500, and the reserve rescue department only has like 600. So basically, the next grant that they apply for and are awarded, where there's a match, those will be depleted. Any difference will come out of their budget, and then going forward, that's how I'm going to ask them to budget. If there's a big grant that they plan on applying for, then we can revisit that later on. But it seems silly to have an account with $600 in it. And in my opinion, it didn't really match the criteria for a reserve account. And then the Gibson charitable grant, that was a $10,000 grant we were awarded back in 2013. It has a specific purpose. It hasn't been utilized. So as it's depleted, it wouldn't have we wouldn't be getting any more money for it anyway. So it would need to be closed at the end of it anyways. But those are the only 3 listed in the appendix, which for some reason isn't on my photocopy. Can you grab the one off my board? You have it?
I can go make copies real quick. You covered everything.
Did I hit it right? I just wanted to make sure.
No, you did.
So what I did in the appendix two is not only did I outline the name of the grant, the reserve fund that's currently in existence, I put the purpose down so that it's clearly outlined in your policy that like the fire department the town's matching share grant to fund the town's share of matching fire department grants. And then I outlined the guidelines for the Gibson Charitable Trust or charitable grant as well. Yeah, just make 4 copies so they have a copy of it,
All right,
just so that they can.
thank you. Sure.
But I think I hit on all the changes. The definitions, as those came into question. And just for uniformity, on the fire department capital asset reserve. In the purpose, I changed the term fixed asset to capital assets so that you can look at the definition and it flows better than having 2 different terms.
Really made it to work because you had lost you. So. Yeah. So she wrote the definition from. For the purpose of clarity, the fire department capital reserves includes capital assets, includes reserves.
Correct. I think before you vote, if I can bring up one other thing, since I put it in your packets. I know I've mentioned it at multiple meetings, but the remount, I just want to be as transparent as possible with this rescue department capital asset reserve. So 451 is due for a remount. We got our proposal. I was estimating 180,000. The proposal came in at 180,353. Between those 2 accounts, we currently have 103,000. If we order the chassis now, they can't get us on their calendar until 2025. And it's probably gonna take us that long to get everything anyways. So since this is technically the budget process, at a later meeting, we could discuss it at the next meeting, but I will be asking to take the amount of money necessary to purchase that chassis for this project. And any funds that go into this account are gonna go towards the final cost of this. But if we order the chassis now, as opposed to waiting, they take $1,000 right off of the price we were quoted. So the whole quote and estimate is in front of you, so you have it, so you can review it later on, but basically, we're looking at probably 18 months or 2 years before this will be completed, but we basically need to come up with another 77,000 over the next year and a half once we take delivery.
For clarity. Are there other companies to choose from? Is this
There's
who
2.
we've chosen to go with?
There's 2 in the state. I haven't talked to Stacy. She had put out. She had contacted the other company to get a quote. I have not seen that quote yet. If it comes in less, then obviously we would look at both of them and see if they're comparative. But it's one of those specialty things that You can't just call 5 different vendors and be like, hey, can you remount my ambulance? So, this is one of the well-known companies. It's one that we use for a lot of our stuff with the ambulances. But we did reach out to another, is it Autotronics, there you go. So if I do see another one, I will provide that to you as well. But as of right now, that's the only one that we've got.
So the. It's that.
They're usually pretty good at honoring those because they know that they can't get this on their calendar until 2025. They were open about that. So I think when they do their original estimates, they're only good for 30 days, or they say they're only good for 30 days, but they understand we have to go through the process, and it I would imagine that Sugarloaf would honor the same price. But the big thing is the chassis line is. And I'd also ask them to look at other options as well. So the chassis for this is quoted as a 2025 Ford E450. And the cost of that was $49,820. So that's what we would need to take out of reserve to pay for that chassis up front. I did ask them to get a quote on doing that with a truck chassis as well, just so we could see the difference. Because obviously a truck chassis is 4-wheel drive as opposed to 2-wheel drive driving over the mountain. But I just wanted to see what the 2 options were too.
So if we order this chassis and pay for it, then that belongs to us. So if for some reason we get another quote or to go to another company, can we take that? And I don't have any reason not to use this company.
Right.
But
If we had another, I would probably hold off until I see if we have another quote, if they give it to her or not. Because I thought they were supposed to give it to us, but I'd want to see the other quote before, unless they just can't do the quote. If they say they're not gonna do it, then I would go with that, but I'd hold off to even make a decision on that. I just wanted to make it publicly known that the intent right now, based off of my capital improvement planning, based off of our biggest needs, is that account needs the money, the funds in that account need to go towards remounting that ambulance so that we don't have to go, and I'm trying to not have to tax the taxpayers any more than we need to. So if we can do this without having to raise taxes or generate another loan, that would be the best way to do that.
so we're not committing to this until.
Right. I'm just giving you the information you'll have. I want you guys to have time to digest it. But that is the plan currently for any reserve funds for the rescue department.
Any further discussion on the reserve account policy?
I have one question. Does it matter that the motion was to accept the reserve fund policy, it says the regular account policy, and then the language in the motion?
Does yours say reserve funds policy on the top?
It does say reserve.
I had changed that and then I'd gone back. It should say reserve funds policy. So cross that out right there. Yeah.
So is that a typo?
No, I had 2 versions. I had originally changed it when we started doing it, and then I changed it back. The context of what's in the policy is the same. I just changed the title of it.
Okay.
So it should be called the reserve fund policy, which consists of the reserve accounts.
Nice.
Good catch. Who seconded that originally?
I did.
Bob.
All right, no other seconds. Call for a vote. Bob, aye. You are like, yeah. That'll work there. Emergency management planning. You wanna come sit up here?
I got a seat.
There's a seat right here.
Good.
All right. Okay.
So did you guys get a chance to look? You know, read it, look at it,
I started.
and so. You know, obviously the formatting, it's really not an issue. I mean, Vicky's on board, she'll help, Lillian will help. Whoever I can get, type it in there and make it all magic and happen,
Yeah.
happen. So that's why on some of it says that, but honestly. I truly tried to do it the other way. This is all about, after talking with Bill, after doing the research, we need to do this as a group, it can't just be me. So we have to figure that process out. And I think at the last meeting, I suggested maybe a 3-hour block of time once and then another 3-hour block of time. And if everybody had more or less a copy of the, and it's not an exact template, I believe you have a copy of our current plan. So we would take that and compare it to what the rural information is. Combine, wordsmith, do whatever it takes. And then sign off. Now, I am going to the Oxford County Emergency Management quarterly meeting Thursday night. I'm going to specifically find out the hazard mitigation part of the emergency management and whether we can literally paste theirs into ours. Because I've been told that we are covered by them. So if that works, then I think we just need to maybe just a hair, like if on that last sheet, like the hazard probability and vulnerability thing. I'll just hold it up for you guys. This one that was. I was hesitant to leave earthquake, but we have had a couple. And I guess New York just had a bigger one, 4.5 or something, so it's like, but the thing is we would look at this and say, really, what's the probability of that happening? It's slim to next to none, so it would be extremely low, and then maybe not even make the plan. Whereas these winter storms, the rainstorms, the summer storms, you know, they're way, way up, so. So then we just have to decide when to do that.
Okay.
Yes, question, Randy, so
Would it be a workshop?
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah, I think a workshop, that's pretty common. We're supposed to look at that annually, right? That hazard mitigation thing, just as things come up, we. Look at flooding or, you know, what's our biggest dangers and are we planning for them? Yeah,
am I,
no, that's one thing is let's. Set a date and plan for a workshop.
okay,
and then my other thing is I would. Hope that we could. Again, getting everybody at the table all at the same time is really difficult, but I think it's a. Read, or if we could record it in the event that Stacy and or Adam are not here, that they could watch it on their own, give feedback. I could bring it to the next meeting, minimally.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and we can zoom it in too if they're.
Or zoom it in or something,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, usually have pretty good success if you're in person with the Zoom option. So you're
Good.
able to get more people, so.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is we're supposed to be involved, excuse me, the community.
Yeah,
We had, and we mean EMA knew that ahead of time, based on the 2007 hazard bill template that we were gonna use. So we sent out, I believe it is 12 letters, different community partners. Everybody from RE over to Jesse Jill to Backyard Buds, the Legion Hall, the churches, you know, like, because they're supposed to be kind of involved in the process too. Now, maybe that'll happen on the second round or something, but we had 2 letters returned with wrong addresses and only two businesses respond, so. But we can at least say we did try.
yeah, So. When do we wanna do it?
Any chance for daytime, Saturday or Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. We'll look at like the Saturdays of May.
It'd have to be in the afternoon for me. Guess you didn't want me here.
What's our due date?
What's that?
It's our due date to get this whole thing accomplished. April 1st.
Is that it? April 1st?
She said April.
2026.
12 months.
Right after the ambulances. Well, technically, legally, there is no due date because you have a sound emergency management. So we're in compliance. Which was the original goal. We're in compliance in many, many ways. The compliance issue is over. So that did get done. The most important part of developing this plan is that it be as realistic as possible, given the limited amount of resources that we. That's why it has to be approved, because I can't.
Yeah, and FEMA and NEMA, they want you to do it annually, right? So
Yeah.
they're gonna ask the question.
Yeah, and it's been 5 years, and I mean, we're right in line with NEMA upgrading theirs, or updating theirs, and Oxford County had updated theirs, so if we update ours, we're right in line.
Yeah,
So.
perfect. So. May 11th. Or.
This may sound crazy, but, is there, you have a board meeting on the 7th and one on the 21st, but
Yeah.
nothing on the 14th? Instead of taking up everybody's weekends,
Like
that makes it a hair easier.
a Tuesday night, it's okay with me.
What's the scenario? Let me see.
Yep. May 14th, that. Regular time, 6:30 or? Yeah,
Yeah.
is that okay?
Yeah, if we pushed it to 6, what would happen, or 5:30, what would happen, is it easier or harder?
What is going on? I usually get here by 6. 6:30.
Alright, 6:30 it is.
6:30.
6:30 on the 14th DMA board workshop. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I can quickly, not to take up any more time, but that's done. We did have our recovery scoping meeting, it did go well. We are meeting again next Wednesday. Weldon was great, Adam showed up, Cameron was great, we have some work that has to happen, Vicky was here today, the EMA volunteered to begin, and she took a look at stuff, she has some environmental background, so she's gonna be very helpful with the DEP, the EHP, the H&H, the rest of the alphabet soup permits that we may or may not. Because she has experience in that, so. We did some research, found out some information, and I feel a little more prepared to talk the hazards. I know his first name is Joe, the speakerphone was pretty horrible, I didn't get his last name, but he's the 406 hazard mitigation program chief for FEMA. And he's coming in person to the next meeting, so that we can discuss moving. Fonts Road out of the emergency project category, because we repaired it, it's done back to more or less original, it's temporary, but it's still original. Into a permanent work project, raising it in elevation and moving it over. We have to go through these steps to do it. And it may or may not, work. That being said, the critical piece that I think you all need to understand is if we can do that project through public assistance versus just simply applying to the state for a homeland security grant through FEMA. If we can get this upgraded to permanent work status, we have a 70 they pay for, the state pays for 15, we pay for 10. If we wait and don't do it now through this process and go through the other. First of all, the other one is a competitive grant with everybody else in the state. And the second thing is we could easily end up doing 50-50. So that's why I think it's really important to do it through this process of good sales. Even though in the steps, Kim and I were talking about this today, the DEP, the HH, and the alphabet soup of permitting would still be required. Even if we didn't go through FEMA at all, and just went and said, we as a town can afford to do this, which we can, and do it, we would still have to go to DEP, maybe the Army Corps of Engineers, and look for endangered species, threatened species, and go on and so forth. Hopefully we can pull this off. But that's critical, coming up. Weldon's done great, everybody's done great.
Yeah, 10% sounds pretty good to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You should see the workbook they have us.
Well, this is a big workbook and it's even the permitting though, it's like, again, one permit might be $150. So if we had to pay 100% of that or 50% of that compared to 10% of that. I mean, it just makes sense, even though we're doing our best. Vicky again has that experience and she has the computer experience, so she'll be coming in next week. Unfortunately, it does fall town manager. And there's just information that only Cameron has access. And it just does add more to his plate in that sense. But once we're out of this first phase, into the second phase, I think it's be a little cheaper. But it's unfortunate of the timing coming right out of budget season, right out of ordinance season, right out of policy season. And everything else to have to deal with this, right? So Cameron's done good to hang in there. He really is.
I can't get to the roof.
It's important. And that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that's sometimes complicated work. A lot of precision stuff.
Yeah,
Just back and forth agreement,
but so far so good, so that's just like I'm saying, I'm just trying to stay positive.
Yeah.
I gotta just stay like, it's just like baking a cake, 2 eggs, 1/4 cup of oil, a little water, 350, we'll get through it.
We certainly appreciate it.
And we're only on our second project manager.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Any other questions for him? No? All right. New business consent agenda.
Can I make a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Any discussion? All those in favor, Bob, aye.
Heather, I.
Peter, aye.
Sandra, hi.
All right, approval of the minutes.
I'm still one behind.
Well, we had some complicated meetings there. The budget, yeah. That's a lot going on.
I was talking to Viv. I was like, I wish I could just have Zoom spit out a transcript, but then you said something the other night, and what the screen said you said was not what you said, and I was like, that would be what? Well, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, that wouldn't have helped me. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Good, I said it. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 12, 2024, March 17, 2024, and March 19, 2024 select board meetings. As written. Okay, any discussion on changes for those? Didn't see anything. All right, all in favor? Bob, aye. Peter, aye.
Sandra, aye.
Okay. Elected clerk at 1 minute.
All right.
Motion to appoint Kate Buck, Russell Clark, Penny Horsfall, and Vivian Wallace as Democratic election clerks for the town of Buckfield for a term beginning May 1st, 2024, and ending April 30th, 2026.
Second that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, Bob, aye. Peter, aye.
Sandra, aye.
Opening clerk at 1 minute.
So I will make a motion to appoint Judith Bennett, Tina Brooks, Wendy Turner, and Michelle Casey as Republican election clerks for the town of Buckfield for a term beginning May 1st, 2024, and ending April 30th, 2026.
Second that motion. Any discussion? All in favor, Bob, aye. Peter, aye.
Sandra, aye. Thank you, everybody, for sending it to you. It's hard, we appreciate it.
Brittany will be happy.
And then signing.
Oh yeah, Brittany reach out to them. No, it's you were ready to go though.
That's so efficient.
Right. Paving bids.
So just point of information.
Yes.
So the deadline to submit these bids was on the 12th. Originally, I had intended for you all to open them, but this actually worked out because 3 of the companies were here waiting for me to open the bids. So Viv sat in with me and we opened them up one by one. The one thing that I noticed, I did send this off to Weldon. There were only 2 companies that actually broke down the cost of reclaiming the roads, which is Spencer and Pike. However, if you take the 2 road sections and add them together, the only company that came within our proposed budget for paving was Spencer Group Paving. If we have the same company do both projects, which would be my recommendation because they're right there. And Weldon felt the same. We've had good luck with Spencer Group. They've done a lot of our projects. We haven't had any issues. And just price alone, I think my recommendation and Weldon's recommendation would be to go with them. Pending voter approval in June.
Make a motion to award the contract for the 2024-2025 paving projects. Planned for the North Buckfield Road and Paris Hill Road to Spencer Group Paving in the amount of $469,732.20, pending town meeting approval.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Yeah,
Yeah, Cam, could you just go quickly over that reclaim part again? Are we getting a reclaim vest?
Yes, that was part of the RFP. They reclaim it, we use it as a surface if there's any low spots, and
Yeah.
well, then they'll yell at me if I get this wrong, but if there's any low spots, we bring in the material, the gravel, and we build it up. Yep. Similar to what we did on East Buckfield Road.
any other discussion? All right, all in favor, Bob, aye. You're right.
Sandra, aye.
Now, the municipal center roof estimate, we got a little problem up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I included the estimate in your packets. The proposal is to, in the contractor's opinion, we called several. This was the one company that showed up, climbed up on the roof, and obviously put together an actual proposal. What they're proposing, in their opinion, the roof that's currently up there is beyond repair. I mean, it's an old torch down. It's been patched a significant amount of times with materials that aren't compatible with one another.
Roughly the stuff.
I think some work was done in 2000, some other work was done in 2010. And I think something might have been done when Joe Roach was here, but I can't find any records of it.
The roof that's there now is put in.
Well, Brittany called one contractor and he said he was up there in 1987 and he was the one that installed it. So unless it's been done another time since then, I believe that's probably right before the town took it over. Unless Judy knows. But he said 1987. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the work that they did in 2000, 2010 was to seal it. But it's pretty cracked. It's leaking. I just noticed another spot today in the server room. It's in the walls. So what we're up against is when you guys did the budget, or you made your recommendations for town meeting, I think we put another $20,000 into the maintenance budget for this building. The proposal's for a little over 55,000. I did put in for that grant, but I won't get an answer until June on whether or not we get it. And unfortunately, I don't think we can wait till June. Because we got sheetrock falling down upstairs. Any heavy rains, it's the longer, yeah. And the longer we wait, the more damage to the building. It needs to be fixed. So my recommendation, I know we had talked. Should we file an insurance claim? My opinion, I don't think they'll pay out on it. I mean, we just talked about in 1987. It's a regular maintenance thing that we need to address. And I don't think having us file another claim and increasing our costs for insurance makes any sense, because even if it gets denied, we filed the claim. So I'm recommending that the board call a special town meeting, open floor town meeting, and ask the voters to appropriate $56,000 from undesignated surplus or undesignated funds to pay for that repair.
Yes, Sandra?
ARPA.
Oh, that's right. We do have the ARPA money. So we don't even need that much. So there's 21 roughly. So we need the difference, 30, 34. Yeah. But the good thing about open floor town meeting is at that meeting, the motion can adjust that number to reflect what we actually need. And I would anticipate, from any standpoint, if you have a project, I'd anticipate 10% above and beyond, just in case something happens. Because if you look in that quote, you'll notice that if they get the roof up and they find some rot, they're going to replace that and they'll do a certain amount. But after that, we got to be able to pay for that too. So with that said, I have in anticipation that you might do that, I have a draft warrant on my computer that I can revise to reflect, to see if the voters will appropriate a sum of money from undesignated funds to repair the roof. Because that's essentially what the question would be, and then discuss that at the meeting. Benefit to the open floor town meeting, you're not restricted to referendum. You can have open floor town meetings, and you can call this meeting, and we only need 7 days to post. I asked you for 10 days because I can post it, but
We're gonna include a special town meeting, hold it prior to the next select board meeting.
We have 9 here.
I think we still have 2 Tuesdays in this month before our next select board meeting, just 3 weeks before our next select board meeting.
Is that too far away? We're excited.
The 30th would be 14 days.
Yeah, so that'll be time to post it and do it that night.
I mean, it's just the one question. There'll be 2 questions. There'll be 2 articles, appoint a moderator and then this question. But unfortunately, we can't put it off any longer.
Is that what works for us?
That works for me.
So what day did you say?
Yeah,
So I'll make the motion to hold an open floor special town meeting on April 30th, 2024. To be held at the Buckfield Municipal Center to vote on appropriating a sum of money from the undesignated fund balance to replace the failing municipal center roof.
What time do you want to hold that meeting at?
At 6:30 PM.
I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, Bob, aye. You're
Sandra, aye.
you. 2023-24 financial reports.
So I've already given you, or I've already given the board the Q1 and Q2. Q3 is in your packet. The board never voted to accept Q1 and Q2, so I included it in this agenda item. It's a point of.
Yes,
I may be wrong, but I'm thinking it would be best practice for going forward for us to review the quarterly report at town meeting, I mean, the select board meeting. So perhaps I know we've all gone through it independently, but if we did it here together tonight at this meeting,
yeah.
and then before
Mhm.
looking to accept them all.
And all 3 of those are posted on the budget committee page of our website. So if anybody wants to see them, they can go check them out.
How hard is it to show people where it is? Or it as well?
Oh, I can share my screen. Let's see. Actually, I should open it up first.
Technical wizardry. Thank you.
All right, so boards and committees, budget committee. Scroll down to the bottom. Quarterly financial reports are right there. Order 3 is the one that the board just received. Or sorry, that I sent out to you earlier.
And certainly if anybody wanted a paper copy, they could
You can absolutely.
come down to the town
Yep.
office and get it.
So one thing to note, if you, well, I know you've looked over it on page 1, looking at the department lines. Hydrant rental is over. And that was because of that 15% increase that the BVC, the rates went up. And we were only budgeting for 10. So that one's over budget. My recommendation would be to use that $1,700 or use $1,700 from the emergency contingency to cover that. But it's already been paid. So it's as of the end of March, that's where it was taken out of, so that you can see it. Aside from that, all the other departments are looking good. We've already hit our administration revenues. So the negative in green is actually a positive for us. It's money that wasn't appropriated as revenue, so that'll fall to fund balance. Same with the fire department, recreation committee, public works. This rescue, you can see, I know we have a warrant article. If it goes over the 257 that was projected, asking the voters to take that money and put it in the reserve account. I still don't anticipate that we're gonna hit that. We still got to bring in another 89,000. We're still 3 months out. It's possible, but I don't, barring any significant changes in billing. Let's see. Solid waste, actually, that's kind of misleading. We received one of last year's payments in this fiscal year, so it looks like we're only $9,000 away, but one of those payments was from last year. Local road assistance, we were over. So basically all of our state revenues, we've met the number except for municipal revenue sharing, but I anticipate that will hit the 325 that was projected. And then taxes are due May 15th. We're currently at 53.46% collected for the year. And this was done March 31st, so we've actually taken more in, but we're trending good. Bank account balances look good. Obviously, there's going to be an influx as taxes come in. Really nothing of significance. I included all the bank account balances, so anybody has any questions, they can see those. There's your total. ARPA is currently sitting at 21,351.05. So, and you had already motioned to use that for the roof, so that'll come off what's needed. Reserve funds in their existing state prior to this meeting, the ambulance and the equipment reserve, as you can see, the ambulance reserve has 70,000, rescue equipment has 33. Fire truck replacement at 79. Fire equipment replacement has 83. One of the capital improvement items that's on my list is, which we're still a few years out on it, but engine 3 is a 2004. If you go with the expected life when it was purchased of 25 years, that would put its refurbishment date sometime in 2029 with an anticipated cost of 275. That one I would recommend to refurbish. I don't think the tanker would be worth refurbishing just because it doesn't make sense talking to people over there, but the tanker's wouldn't be slated. If we were actually following this, the tanker wouldn't be slated to be refurbished until 2033. Highway equipment replacement, we only have $6,000 in there, so one of the 1 to 2 year items, which I brought up in the budget cycle, was that 2005 GMC that's going to need to be replaced next year. So we don't have a reserve account with enough funds to cover that. So next year we're going to have to ask the voters if they'll finance it. Unless we come into a bunch of money that I don't know about. What else? I know it's hard to read on the screen because it's sideways and you guys have it in front of you, but this is my breakdown by month of how much interest each account receives. So it's all tracked, even though all this money is in one account, it's tracked proportionately to its balance. So that's the amount of that percentage is the interest that it earns. So each month you can see what each account has earned. The reserve accounts have made about almost $11,000 in interest this year. We got 3 more months of interest. The community day used to be a CD with the interest rates. If you actually look at it, the interest rate we were making off of it was 0.05%, which was ridiculous. So when we get our bank accounts switched over, our money market rates switched over to that 5.15. When the CD matured, I carried it. I told them to let it mature into our trust fund account. So it's now sitting in our trust fund account making 5.15% as opposed to 27 cents a month. Actually, yeah, 27, 23 cents a month. Community festivities, that's a checking account. There's no interest on it. Current trust fund principal balance is 479, 651, 16. So that's the principal that earns the interest that is then used to fund whatever purpose those trust funds were established for. You see all the cemetery perpetual care funds. Really, the Buckfield Damon Cemetery is the biggest one. The other ones, the Lowell Cemetery, we manage that one. But the Lowell Cemetery has their own association. So each year we take the interest that's earned and we give it to the Lowell Cemetery Association to go towards their perpetual care. But all this, the interest that's earned on those perpetual care accounts is used for offsetting the cost of the town maintaining the cemeteries. Five accounts in the middle of the screen. So Francis Buck, the G. Barrett Spalding, F. Milton, and Burley B. Warren Scholarship, Mary E. Gammon, and Alice B. Parks. Those are all scholarship funds. Alice B. Parks, the recipients determined by the family, I believe. And then the other four, there's a criteria that the school or that were established when they were established is put in, and the school sends me a list every year, and we find out who's going to receive the award, and then I let them know how much is anticipated. John D. Long Fund, that's the one that's used to help the schools, the poor, the roads, and there's one other, the library. So when you looked at the budget and you saw the four-way split, that's the interest that's earned off that account. That's where that goes. The Library Anonymous Trust, now that we finally got the trust thing handled with legal and everything's good, that money, we only use the interest. However, the terms of the trust were that if it were ever unfeasible for the town to operate the library on just the interest, or you could use it for running the library. And then I have a breakdown of the interest earned on all those accounts after that. The CD I included in there because it matured this year, but that matured back over into the trust fund account when the interest rates went back up. And then I included the general ledger summary report that comes out of Trio. This one, after I generated this, I've actually gone in and done some reviews of it and identified areas like the employee health insurance, which is the employee share versus the employer's share. On some of the APs, it was built to the wrong GL account. So I've made some general journal entries to take them out of the right account or transfer it back to the right account. So the next quarterly one, these numbers will look a little bit different because I corrected some mistakes that were made. Miscellaneous in and out account, that's typically something comes in and is going out for, something comes in with a specific purpose, it goes out. It literally is just you'll see a debit and a credit. I identified a couple of things that were actually billed to that one that should have been billed to, like rescue billing refunds. Sometimes if an insurance company overpays, I have to issue a refund. It should have came out of the revenue account because that's where it went into. And for some reason, it was taken out of the miscellaneous in and out. So I've since corrected that as well. But really, that account's not used very often. Planning board subdivision, that's sort of an escrow account. When there's a subdivision that comes in, there's a rate that the planning board charges to do mailings and hearings and stuff like that. So anything on here that you see a negative, that's actually a positive, and then a positive is a negative. The miscellaneous cash line, that 1000-00, it's really, I wish it wasn't there because all that is a balancing account. So if money goes in, there's a debit so that the software and the database comes out even, which there's something on this report, like I've mentioned in the past, something's up with it. It shows that the overall GL accounts are out of balance by $832. So I'm trying to find $832 out of a lot of money. I anticipate that when the auditors come to audit it, it'll be either identified or it's such a small amount that it doesn't interfere with, it's most likely just a logging error. But all in all, you can see if you look at like the 18-19 taxes receivable, you see a negative number where it shows a positive. This is why I didn't like sharing the GL list because it poses questions like, well, why did we make more money than what was, oh, it should be a net zero, right? If you collect all the taxes for that year, it should be zero. But really what happened was when we transitioned from NDS to Trio, not all the balances were put in. So like as payments were, it makes it look really ridiculous. But so with that said, those look funky. Like it looks like we brought in an extra $261,000 for 21-22. It's not, we carried everything over from NDS and it just looks that way. So 23-24 taxes, we have outstanding 1.3 million. The Drew Brook grant. Did I fix this? So Vivian had brought up she was confused about it because there was two different Drew Brook grant lines. One was in a second fund and I forgot to carry it over. So since I generated this report, this has been corrected. So this quarter, I'm going to take it's actually a positive number, which means we overspent what the Drew Brook grant brought in. And then I'm going to transfer that over to all roads because that's where it should have came up once the grant money was expended. The town shares came in. So that line will be a net zero and eventually it'll fall off because that project's done. So what I did when I got these set up is capital projects. So there's five funds set up in the system. There's our regular general ledger, which is 01. 02 is for special revenues, which I actually don't use anymore because this is the one that got mixed up and we had some accounting issues with you can't transfer from Fund 2 to Fund 1 without doing 4 entries. So then I decided to move everything to Fund 1, like the Drew Brook grant, because it's a lot more accounting work that didn't need to be done. So I don't actually use 2, but 3 I do. 3 is capital projects. So I'm essentially doubling my workload. I track it on the spreadsheet, which essentially is your general ledger for those reserve accounts, but it's also in Trio. So that if anybody had to pull a report, they could find the spreadsheet, it's here. So that's where the current reserve accounts are. And then Fund 4 is trust funds. So that's all your trust funds. So when I receipt for interest on the trust funds, instead of tracking it on the spreadsheet, even though I do track it on the spreadsheet, I also receipt for it in Trio and then it adds to the balance. So these numbers that you see over here are your actual, the principal that's tracked in, or the interest is tracked in Trio. And then you have your invested principal. So that's the overall principal of the trust fund account. That number doesn't match because there was some issues. I've corrected that as well. A couple of principal deposits hadn't been receipted for in the system properly, so the numbers were off. And then Fund 5 is where I try to keep track of the solid waste account. Again, I track all this in spreadsheets because my spreadsheets are clean and you see them and everything's there. I'm fighting with Tria. So there were some issues with the solid waste account because I actually receipt for like the swap shop money that comes in. It's an in and out account. So I'm similar to that miscellaneous. So as they get donations and they need supplies, we pay out of that account. But in order for me to track the solid waste bank account properly, I also have to do a second receipt into the solid waste account where we transfer it. And I wasn't doing those second receipts. So I've worked my way through that as well. For the sake of tracking this stuff, sometimes the spreadsheets are easier. But all in all, I've made a lot of progress on it. It's getting better. Viv actually sat down and I kind of showed her what was going on. She helped me identify a couple areas where it had gone to the wrong account, but it's there. That's what it looks like. I'm racking my brain over what this $832.22 is. It's hard when you see it sitting there, but and the worst part is if you look at the general government 01, right next to it, it says OOB. So when you pull up the report, it's just out of balance. It should be zero. And that's what that miscellaneous account does. So you take the positive, the negative, and it all equals zero. But it's not very clean in the way they designed it. But there you have it. That's what I'm supposed to include in the financial report. So any questions?
No.
Any concerns?
Did we make a motion yet?
No.
I'll make a motion to accept the 23-24 first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter treasury financial report.
Second thought.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, Bob, aye.
So there,
Peter, aye.
Sandra, aye.
Perfect. Any other business? Yes, Viv?
Can we just go back to that rapid rebound? That has to happen tonight. I'm confused. No. All that.
Yes.
So I actually, when I was sitting there trying to explain that to you, I didn't realize that Stacy was trying to get into the meeting. So we moved on, but she sent me a text message and we didn't get a quote from Audiotronics. They were supposed to give it to us the Tuesday after we had discussed it. And so she's gonna follow up with them tomorrow just to see if they have it. And I wouldn't act on it until we have either we know they're not gonna do a quote or they are. But she did say in the email that she sent me. Of course, it's not up here right now. She confirmed that Audiotronics or Autotronics, I don't know why I keep saying audio, but Autotronics and Sugarloaf Ambulance are the only two in the state that do this type of work. So you're kind of, unless you want to ship it out of state, which I would recommend. We still have to, and here's the other thing with that project too, is once the chassis comes in and they're ready to do the remount, we have to send 451 out. We got to think of creative ways on how we're going to either take a year off from transfers or we find a second ambulance, either we lease it on a short-term basis until another one comes in, or and obviously it'd have to make financial sense to the town. Maybe we come up with a smoking deal that we can flip it as soon as we're done and make our money back. I don't know, but that will narrow us down to one ambulance for an extended period of time.
That's really tricky because get a flat tire.
We're out of service.
Yeah, it's just that simple.
So think about solutions. I mean, there are some out there, like there's ambulances out there that are relatively affordable, but I wouldn't want to run them for more than a year or so. Like we bought 451 knowing we were going to get 2-ish years out of it. And we're actually pushing it up to 3 now by the time this project gets started. It's not a bad ambulance, but it's older and you can see it on the body that main roads have caught up to it. So main EMS says the life or the expected life cycle of an ambulance is 8 years at 18,000 miles a year. Obviously we don't drive 18,000 miles a year, so we can push it out, but That's a 2012. So that's a, what, 12, almost, actually 13-year-old ambulance because it was built in 2023. So it's seen a lot of salt and other issues, but
On the roof. I'm assuming we can't operate business as usual while the roof is being repaired. So we have to discuss a backup option for that.
no, we'll still be able to operate. Um, they'll have safety mechanisms. Those roofs are actually installed relatively quickly. Um, they'll have to put like a safety fence over here during, to prevent any debris from falling on people or whatever, and they'll have to put up some signage and just be cognizant of it. But I don't anticipate it being a very long project because that EPDM material comes in rolls. They roll it out and then just the cleanup work. It's mostly going to be the debris or the removal of the existing roof cover. That'll make the mess, but I bet you they'll blow through that relatively quick. So I don't anticipate it affecting business, and who knows, maybe they'll start on a Monday, we won't even be open. Because they'll probably want a dumpster and they'll be throwing it out probably that way. But they're gonna have to rent equipment to get, because that stuff's heavy and there's no way to get up there other than that little hole. And the guy that came to look at the roof, I mean, he barely fit through that hole and he wasn't a big guy. I'd struggle to get through that hole. It was the first time I got to see the hatch though. So once you actually move the panel, it's actually like another 4.5 feet up. But so I don't anticipate any business issues with that. If I find out anything different, once the project's scheduled, if we get the funding, then I guess I'll bring it to you and we'll handle it at that point. I think we'll be all right.
Any other business? Right, we are gonna have executive session this evening. I'll make a motion, to enter an executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056A. Discuss for consideration of employment or appointment. I'll second that motion. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, Bob, aye. Sheila.
Sandra, I.
So I'm just gonna mute everything and then shut off the camera. All right, so here we go. Shouldn't see my cards.
Well, you got it. You're sure, okay. Yes, you said great on that, it's great to have a little discussion about possible appointments. That was that. Yeah. Lucky have any other business? I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:51 p.m.
I'll second that.
Thank you, all in favor, bye bye. You're up.
Sandra, I.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you all take off, I want to edit that warrant real quick and print it out so you can sign it so that I can post it because we don't meet again.
Was that one over?
Yeah.
And make sure that the appendix is attached.
The policy itself,
Does it need it?
I'll get that done up. I'm more concerned about the warrant.
Oh,